Yesterday, I shared with you that conversations are very much progressing in the Northland for the Royals, despite the fact that you're continuing to hear confidence out of folks on the Kansas side that they can land one or both of these two professional sports teams in the Kansas City area. So I now also can share with you that there are further conversations and meetings happening this week in the Northland between county officials, state officials, and the Royals. So despite the fact that obviously Kansas seems very optimistic about its chances right now, and that's what you heard the other day here on KCMO Talk Radio from Senate President and gubernatorial candidate Ty Masterson, who said this on this show.
So, I mean, there are a lot of productive conversations going on. I think they're getting to go past conversations into some detail. I do think they are still in conversations on both sides. And here's what I will tell you. I'm not a gambling man, but I would start to put money on Kansas.
For which team?
For both.
Do you feel like the odds are better for one over the other?
I'd probably put stronger odds on the Royals. But, I mean, I'd actually put money down on both.
Okay.
I think they're very productive conversations happening.
And I don't deny that. I mean, I'm sure Ty's telling the truth. He has no reason not to, right? But I'm just sitting here telling you, don't sit there and just believe it's a done deal. Despite what other radio hosts up or down the aisle might try to convince you of, or up and down the dial, up and down the aisle. Thinking about someone getting married, I guess. Up and down the dial. They might be sitting there telling you that 119th and all is a done deal. Trust me, it's not. It's not even close. In fact, what I heard is that somebody up or down the dial was getting slapped around a little bit by one of the two pro sports teams for continuing to basically jump the gun on this stuff. You know who it is. What does he do, Mark? What does this host like to do? Oh, there you go. Little Basset Hound Bob. The guy's just, he's so far out over his skis on this stuff. He reported 6 months ago that 119th and all for the Royals was a done deal. Now he's jumping on it last week after some of that news broke, and it's like I'm just sitting here telling you that if that was a done deal, the Royals are not wasting their time progressing conversations in the Northland. They're just not doing it. These people are too busy. They're too important. They got too much going on to waste time on meetings, knowing full well that time is not on their side. Something that I continue to hear is that there is a self-awareness happening right now, which, boy, talk about that being long overdue. There's a self-awareness right now where these teams understand they got to move. All right, they got to figure this thing out. People are so sick of it. They're exhausted by it. And especially if you've got to go to a vote, which is part of the proposed plan in Clay County. If you're going to go to a vote of the people, well, you better wrap this thing up and get some damn goodwill on your side and then build a strategic campaign. Not a slapstick, last-minute kind of deal like you did in Jackson County a year and a half ago. Like a real campaign. And that's why I think they understand that they probably got 5 to 6 weeks to figure out what they're going to do. And then if they do end up picking the Northland, and I'm not saying they're going to, but if they pick the Northland because they like that proposal and there's a Clay County tax element to it as well, that would probably be on an April ballot. And they can actually build out a real campaign over the next 6 months or so. Instead of like announcing it, February, and then being like, vote for us in April. And Sly James, God bless him, is the face of it. It's like, I don't think that's the best play, guys. I don't think that's the best play here. So there is still a lot that needs to happen. I'm not going to sit here and make a crazy prediction. I won't do it. I will just tell you that there are meetings happening this week in Clay County with county, state officials, and the Royals. So do with that information what you want, but understand North Kansas City is still very much in the mix and in the conversation. Now, down in Jackson County, what's going on with Frank White? We know that there is a recall effort that has now resulted in a September 30th ballot initiative, right? So on September 30th, you're going to go to the polls. Some of you are going to run to the polls. Some of you are going to camp out the night before at the polls. Like it's ESPN's College Game Day. Like it's getting into a Duke or KU basketball game, right? Oh, my gosh. I don't know if they have to do that at KU. I see it all the time on TV for like Duke and North Carolina. I think KU has a much more normal system, but maybe they do have to camp out. I'm sure someone will correct me on the text line on that.
They have some campouts.
They do have some campouts for big games?
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. Now you got to camp out just to make sure Bill Self didn't have a heart attack last night. Hopefully he shows up to the game on time. Jeez. But they've got this September 30th recall election for Frank White. And I think the guy's basically a lock to get recalled. I don't want to say it's as much of a lock as like, Zelensky wearing a suit the other day, but it's more or less a lock that Frank White is going to get recalled. I don't know how he possibly survives. It's a random Tuesday in September, and the people who are most motivated by a mile are those who want to see him out. There's no real support for Frank White from anyone, as far as I can tell. And even the people that kind of support him, they're not going around bragging about it. Right? Like, who is that constituency that just really wants Frank White to stay in office? I don't know who it is. So I think Frank White is done on October 1. So then the question is, what happens? Well, the Kansas City Star wrote about it here this morning, and they said if White's recalled, the office of the county executive would be considered empty the moment the vote was certified. The county legislature would have the first swing at naming a temporary replacement before voters make an official choice in November of 2026. That's when the election takes place. Legislative Chair Duron McGee would be in charge of immediately appointing the temporary replacement. The county legislature would then have 30 days until October 30th to vote to approve the appointee, who would hold the office until the following January 1. Now, if the legislators fail to pick a replacement, the judge of the county's 16th Judicial Circuit Court, currently Kevin D. Harrell. What is with judges using their middle initial? Can someone explain that to me? What is that all about? I mean,
well, you wouldn't want to impugn Kevin A. Harold
that's
or
fair.
Kevin B. Harold.
That's fair.
Not that guy.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's a good point, John. I get it. Well, Kevin D. would appoint a... Can we just do that? Sounds like a rap nickname, you know?
I like it.
Kevin Dirty
Judge
D.
Kevin D.
would appoint a temporary county executive for the same time frame. All right, here's the problem. I don't think they're going to pick somebody. There's going to be so much infighting in this county legislature. Why? Because the people in charge, there's a lot of them that want to be the temporary executive. Why? Because they want to be perceived as the person who saves the Chiefs in Jackson County. That's it. Now, they won't have anything to do with it, let's be clear. They won't. If the Chiefs decide to stay in Jackson County, it'll be because they like Arrowhead and they think the deal from Jackson County from the taxpayer is too good, and they also think that the deal is just too good from the state, and they also may not trust the Star bonds. That'll be why. It will have nothing to do with who's in charge of the Jackson County legislature. In fact, it might be in spite of whoever's in charge of the Jackson County legislature. But that person is then going to bill themselves as the person who helped save the Chiefs. And they'll run for re-election in 2026. And I believe there are multiple people on that legislature who want that role. They want to have a leg up in a general election by saying, look at me, I was the temporary executive, I saved the Chiefs, vote for me. And that will be a very easy sales pitch if you get that role. That's also why I don't believe the legislature is going to be able to come to a consensus on who the temporary executive is going to be, because there are too many political futures at risk. They won't agree on anybody. So it's going to come down to this judge, Kevin D. Kevin Dirty D is going to be the guy that ends up picking the temporary county executive. So just know that name and that nickname, and know that you heard it here first on KCMO, because I know no one read it in the Kansas City Star. Plus, Kevin Dirty D is a much easier name to remember than Judge Kevin D. Harrell, Esquire. No, it's just Kevin Dirty D. He's the guy who's going to pick the next county executive, at least for the next 15 months here on KCMO, after Frank White gets recalled on September 30th.
KDH also sounds like Royals bullpen.
Yeah.
Back in the day, right, John?
KDH. That's pretty good. That's a good number 2 there, Mark. Maybe we'll let the text line decide if they want to label this guy Kevin Dirty D or KDH. KDH kind of sounds like an NBA player to me, you know?
Or a drug.
Yeah, or a drug. Yeah, that's a good point. I like Dirty D, Kevin Dirty D. But, I like the other idea there, Mark. Nice job.